welcome to another episode of Don't Be Insecure, the podcast where we interview CISOs from North America and get their insights on the latest and best practices in the industry. We're really excited to bring you our next guest, but before I do, let me introduce you to myself. I'm Joe Woodwell with Strike Ready, and this is my colleague Shane Skroening of Qualys.
Joe, great to be here with you, and I'm super excited to introduce this next guest. We have Dr. Ed Harris, newly minted Dr. Ed Harris, coming on today to talk with us. He is the CISO over at Mauser Packaging, which is a rigid plastics and steel manufacturer. They support all kinds of industries, making all kinds of things. We'll get into it a little bit into the podcast. It's more fascinating than is led on to believe by the name of the company, but we'll let Ed showcase that a little bit here. He is an ICIT fellow. He spends time in the local community where he lives in Atlanta, in all the different cybersecurity chapters that you would expect and have heard of. And he also just is super passionate about this topic, loves talking with folks, loves mentoring folks in the space. And so without any further ado, we will bring him on.
Unknown assets are hiding throughout the modern attack surface. In fact, the average organization is blind to 38% of their cyber assets. Not only are there gaps in asset coverage, but organizations are piecing together asset inventory and cyber risk context from multiple solutions. An external scanning tool that provides stale data from a snapshot. Another tool that pulls unstructured data from third-party sources. And a CMDB riddled with missing asset records. The result is a cybersecurity foundation full of visibility gaps and extra noise. Introducing Qualys Cybersecurity Asset Management 3.0 with expanded discovery and cyber risk assessment. Now, organizations can consolidate asset inventory and eliminate unknowns with a single solution, combining patent-pending EASM technology to accurately discover and attribute internet-facing assets to your organization. Built-in passive sensing with the already deployed Qualys agent to detect unmanaged devices in real time. And third-party connectors to correlate assets from other tools. Isolate the critical vulnerabilities on your external attack surface, reducing false positives up to 60%, and focusing on the vulnerabilities that matter by using industry-leading detection. Go beyond vulnerabilities, measuring true risk comprehensively with end-of-life, end-of-support technology, missing agents, missing security controls, and unauthorized ports and services. And fix your broken CMDB with shared asset inventory and cyber risk context, including previously unknown external IoT and OT devices. Streamline IT security workflows and map tickets with 96% accuracy to reduce MTTR by half. With CSAM 3.0, there's no such thing as unknown assets. Combine total visibility with complete cyber risk assessment. Try it free for 30 days.
All right. Well, a great welcome to the newly minted Dr. Ed Harris, Director of Information Security, kind of CISO role over at Mauser Packaging. Dr. Ed, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you bet. We're excited for this conversation. We've got some fun kind of current topics around cybersecurity to chat with you about today. But if you don't mind, kind of give us your less than 5-minute who is Dr. Ed Harris, your little self-introduction, if you will.
Gosh, holy cow. So in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, and then lots of mistakes were made, and I ended up as a CISO in Atlanta, Georgia. The fun side of this, I've been in cyber since the beginning, before we started calling it cyber, when it was really network security and network administration and account security and PC security. And so I've been in this industry for 31 years this year. I've been a professional speaker for 28 of those years. recently just acquired my doctorate in the last. I'm about a month and a week, 5 weeks into the Dr. Harris role now.
There you go.
I started my undergrad in 1987, finished in 91, got my master's right after that, went 25 years and said, you know what, I'm a little bored in the evenings. I probably should find something to keep me busy. And so I got accepted to grad school. 2 weeks into grad school, COVID hits. So in the last 4 years, COVID has come and gone. The economy's changed. We've changed presidents. We've got some all kinds of things that are a little bit different about the world now. And now here I am.
All right, awesome. And so do you still in your desk, do you have, I'm blanking on the name of the tool, but like the crimper to put the Cat 5 cables together in the networking closet that you spoke of?
Sure, I do. I've even
All right,
got a fiber optic crimper as well.
there you go.
And recently I found some old BNC connectors.
All right.
Yeah. But
Well, you're
yeah.
not a nerd. You're not a nerd unless you've got Fluke Networks fiber testing tools.
So I don't have that anymore, but that was definitely part of my arsenal back in the day.
Are those things still crazy expensive?
When I bought my first one, it was about $5,000, and I justified it by saying, listen, I've got a lot of fiber to cut, and you can either buy me a $5,000 tool or, buy me a $30,000 employee, low end, somebody to help me, cut and splice fiber and run it throughout the facility. And they're like going, oh, $5,000 it is.
Yeah, they are arguably invaluable, but I just like for what the technology is, it doesn't seem like it should be that expensive.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, a fiber optic tester, you're talking about shooting light through a strand of glass, but you're also measuring the latency, the impedance, cracks in the glass. The glass could be great all the way through the cable, but not be polished properly at the end, and you've got all sorts of noise, and so there's you've got to have a polishing kit because you have to be able to polish that glass right at the very end to make sure that fiber optic connection is crystal clear. And then you are talking about shooting data at the speed of light across long distances.
It's super simple. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's easy stuff. I mean, I don't know why people don't get it.
Okay, so I've already made a determination that you are not a business CISO. You are a technical CISO. Would I be wrong?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are not wrong. I came up in the SOC world, so I remember back in the day we were leaving the Windows 3.11 for work groups. We were getting into Windows 95, and Novell was like really the stink on the stick, and I'm like, oh man, I can't wait. I'm going to be a CNE, and I got my CNA right away, and then Microsoft comes out and says, you know what? We can do this easier. It doesn't need to be this hard. And so they come out with, these cool networking tools. Everything's point and click, got a pretty GUI. Everybody's managing the networks now. And Novell who? I mean, so where did that go? Because not only did they died fast on the vine.
Hard. Yeah.
So, yeah, really, really interesting.
That's crazy. So, Dr. Ed, on that note, of like what type of CISO are you a little bit? It's interesting. You work at Mauser Packaging, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the big focus for you guys is like rigid plastics and then steel, right? You make
So we're rigid packaging manufacturer, and so what that means, we make things as small as butter tubs. We make 55-gallon drums. We make things called IBCs, which it's an acronym short for intermediate bulk container. So imagine a 275-gallon milk jug on a pallet wrapped in rebar. You're big white containers, and so those are on some we market those to a lot of different industries, primarily agriculture. Your big combine pulls up, they load some of their pesticides or fertilizers on the back, and they'll go out and spread out across the field 275 gallons and come in and load up the next pallet and keep going. But we also make 55-gallon drums. We make paint buckets. If you go to Lowe's Home Improvements and you buy a 5-gallon Lowe's branded bucket or Home Depot, the orange branded bucket. We make both of those for both of those companies. If you buy a gallon of paint, Bayer, Glidden, Sherman-Williams, the manufacturer's immaterial, but it's either the metal gallon with the tap on top or the pourable plastic. We make those. We make a lot of hard, rigid packaging in which other companies use our systems to deliver their goods. If you buy something with an aerosol can, spray paint, Raid insect repellent, Lysol, we make aerosol cans.
So all of the things that we all take for granted every day, right? Like everyone think, oh yeah, plastic bucket, whatever, that's
Sure.
fine. I got 5 of those in my garage.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or words in Mauser Packaging's mouth, but my perspective of that industry, that world, and my dad worked at a flexible packaging company, so I have some insight into this. But my perspective is they don't focus on things like technology and cybersecurity from a business standpoint. I know there's tons of tech that goes into actually making those products.
Sure.
But so my question for you is, how do you make sure that you make cybersecurity important and relevant to the business?
So we're a $5 billion organization. We sit across 5 different continents. Natively, we speak 13 languages in our company. So we're literally everywhere on the planet, just about. And so we've had some unfortunate events in the past that necessitated the birth of the information security department for my company. So I came in with a green field and started something from nothing. And today I've got a nice complement of tools, great skill sets on staff, and eyes and ears around the world about things that are going on that helps inform me of how to better protect my organization. But at the end of the day, we have direct top of the line to the CEO of the organization. We talk with our business units about the things that are important. And because we're a manufacturing company, I also have direct line of contact with all of our engineering staff, because we have a rather large IoT network. And so I need my engineers to be informed of cyber threats against the controllers and the PLCs and the SCADA devices that they are responsible for. And so I make sure that I've got a regular communication with them about what the current threats are, what are the vulnerable systems. And we might not run all of the vulnerable systems, but at least my engineering staff is well aware of it. Now we manufacture our own equipment, and so our engineers know our systems inside and out. So
tell me a little bit more about that. What do you mean you manufacture your own?
we make a bucket. We make the machine that makes the bucket. We don't go buy the machine.
I had no idea. That's fascinating.
We've got a rather substantial engineering staff.
So if I could jump in on that, how much of that is kind of OT versus IT? And do you take a different approach with that environment than you would a traditional IT environment?
So, I sit on a number of webcasts and podcasts from time to time talking about this very subject. Not too long ago, there was this big push for IT to OT convergence. We got to know what's going on. And thank God we pushed back and said, no, we are not going to bring the two networks together. So our OT environment is completely separate from our production environment. And I'm glad that that's the case, because at the end of the day, what value does it create for the IT staff to know what's going on in the IT world when that area is air gapped? The only people in the OT network are the engineers. When they need to know what's going on, they have the ability to query their own machines. They sit in the OT network. They know what's running, how fast it's running. Does it need to run faster? Does it need to slow down because of whatever production runs or maintenance cycles and things of that nature? But they're very well aware of the equipment that they have because they built it, and it sits in a private network. So I don't worry about bad actors coming in. I can take a hit in my production network all day long, and it'll never affect my engineering environment, my manufacturing environment.
Mm-hmm. All right. You're the second
So,
CISO. I spoke with one yesterday, and they said that's the approach that the CEO of their manufacturing businesses has dictated or required that if there's no value, we're not connecting it to the internet.
Yeah. Well,
So
and so go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you a different. I was going to kind of change gears, but go ahead and finish.
Yeah. So, what value is it if the IT staff knows what's going on in the OT network? None. It doesn't create any value whatsoever. And so, do I want my IT staff patching my OT network? No, we're not. We're not good at patching OT. That's what engineers do. That's their world. And I don't want to. I don't want to come into the engineering world and step on any toes and and hurt anybody's feelings by saying, hey, listen, guys, we're going to take over your patching and your control from this point moving forward. That's what the engineers are there for. And so I don't want to insert myself in an area where IT is not proficient.
Right.
And
So
we would run the risk of bringing the business down.
right. Speaking of bringing the business down, you may have seen this. I know you posted about it a day ago on LinkedIn. Admiral Mike Rogers recently spoke with me and mentioned that the attack surface is expanding and attackers are actually leveraging AI to cast a wider net, and they can get more traction, more a broader visibility of their attack base, if you will, and I asked him, well, what's the counter to that? How do you balance that in the force? What's the AI approach, and how would you get started? And I was kind of curious about your answer and what you thought about that in light of the FBI warning about hackers using AI today.
Well, so it's all about the egress, right? How are the attackers going to come in? They're going to come in through the internet. How do I know, if that I've got a material weakness if all I'm doing is pen testing once a year? So we've moved to a 24/7 pen testing model. And so we've got a third party who does this on our behalf. They run their own proprietary tool. They pop all of our gateways all of the time. And when we have a material weakness, I find out about it on the spot, not 8 months later when my next pen test is scheduled to occur. So for me, I'm doing what the bad actors are going to be doing, even with the advancements in AI. I'm going to find out about it just as soon as they do. And as soon as I do, immediately we get change records open, we get items patched, and we get everything back to manufacturer specs. Now, does that mean that there's not an undocumented 0-day material weakness somewhere? No, I'll unfortunately, we find these things out when they occur, but I'm doing all of the right things by making sure that all of my gear that does have material weaknesses is patched up and up to date all the time. We also manage we monitor all of our egress points from a logging perspective. All of that flows into our global SOC, which is also an outsourced solution. And so I've got a team that monitors and manages that 24/7. They're a very, very, very large organization, and they have multiple SOCs around the world. So we do a follow the sun model where we've always got somebody looking at us all night long. So if something happens at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, I'll find out about it when it's reached a level of criticality that I need to be brought in. But otherwise, we'll just isolate a machine and deal with it when we come in at 8 o'clock the next day.
Mm.
So AI, back to your original question, with the recent proliferation of AI and the advancements of threats and threat vectors, I'm doing all I can in advance of being caught with my pants down, so to speak.
All right.
Stay ahead of patching, monitor my logs, pay attention to what's going on in the SOC. And so it becomes a compelling story to say that, well, you did all of these things, but you were compromised anyway. Right. We found out that there was one of the manufacturers of one of the devices that we use on our edge. They didn't know they had a 0-day. Am I going to know that they've got a 0-day? I will find out if we become compromised. But otherwise, it is a compelling story to say that we've been doing all of the right things when it comes to, writing my own eulogy for the perfect breach scenario, right? And now AI is making it faster.
It is
Right.
accelerating.
Yeah. kind of the crux of it all, right? As long as you're still doing all the right things to be as secure as you can, obviously, hopefully you can use some AI to help you with that as well. And the attackers are going to help them to kind of continue to
Sure.
advance. You just got to keep up with the things that you can do.
Yeah, and when we can begin to talk about, why don't we have AI in our world? Man, we've had AI in our world for 20 something years now. We've just called it machine learning, and our vendors, I don't need to have the AI specifically for the manufacturing environment. I need to have the AI in the tools at the egress points, because that's where the bad actors are going to come in. So when my third parties are looking at the logs that are coming in out of firewalls and across routers and switches, and looking through internet gateways and other alternatives of gateways that we've got around the world, they say, well, this is an interesting bit bucket here, and there's a combination there, and there's 3, 4 more there, and they can put all those things together and say, we might have an advanced persistent threat, and they're able to discern that stuff, because that's what they do all day long, is they look at logs and they see what bad actors are doing in other countries. And again, our SOC run by a pretty large organization. They see all of the threats that goes on in other countries, and the cool thing about that is, because they've got that visibility over there, I get the value of it over here. And so when it comes down to AI from a cyber perspective, I mean, I can kind of say we've been doing it for years, even though we haven't been doing it.
Sure. Yeah. So, Dr. Harris, taking a step back from the technology and AI and the different pieces that you've built out to protect your environment, when you're thinking of cybersecurity from a business and a leadership perspective, when you're communicating to your leadership and your board, and there's something that you need to do, right? A major change in the environment, people, process, and technology. It's always changing. It's always improving. You've decided that you want to make some sort of major change, swap out all your firewalls, heaven forbid, whatever that looks like.
Right.
How do you effectively communicate that kind of stuff to your leadership so that they understand well enough, like, why you're making those changes to make the company more secure?
So fortunately, I don't want to say we've got carte blanche to do whatever we want to do. We've got carte blanche to do what we need to do when the company is in peril. When the company's not in peril, but we want to take a good risk reducing step, and let's pick something fun like multi-factor authentication. Before we had MFA, we shared with the leaders of the company the value of understanding identity, and they're like, okay, well, we're still making buckets, but we've got to understand identity. And it's like, yeah, we need to understand the people that are logging into our network. And so, when you have people that aren't authorized to be in our network, but they are in our network, well, now that we've got a little bit of problem. So if we add multi-factor authentication, and now we can be sure that we've got 2 factors of authentication, and in the event that one fails, we can still pass with the second factor. And it became more prevalent when we were filling out applications for cyber insurance. They're like, do you have antivirus on the PC? Are you logging, sending your logs to the firewall? Are you rotating passwords every 90 days? And oh, by the way, are you doing MFA? Because if you're not doing MFA, you're not getting cyber insurance. And so, we try to help communicate to our executive leadership team not only the value of the risk mitigating strategy that we're looking to put into place, but there are also real business effects of operating when we don't mitigate certain types of risk.
What other dominoes could fall?
Sure.
Like not being able
Absolutely.
to have cyber insurance.
Right.
Big one.
Yeah. And speaking of cyber insurance, I mean, that's really, it's such a new industry. Insurance companies are trying to figure out still how to be profitable and collect the insurance premiums, but not pay out so much. Keep in mind, insurance companies are in the business of making money. And so, the first year that they started offering cyber insurance and these, ransomware events began to hit, these insurance companies were taking a bath paying out, and they realized, wow, wait a second, we're not asking our clients of enough questions to understand what their risk profile looks like, to see if they are even, worthy of even a low end policy. And we're big enough to be self-insured, but we still carry cyber insurance because it also looks good on the books. We're credit worthy. We've got good security controls into place, and again becomes a compelling story for the success of the organization over time, and our lack of being a successful target and ending up a headline in a newspaper somewhere. So companies are getting a little bit better at asking questions.
Right. So metrics are a really key part of that, right? I would guess, and I'm seeing more and more discussion about MTTR and reducing a mean time to remediation, and these are things that CISOs are sharing with CFOs and CEOs, CIOs, as well as boards sometimes. What are the types of metrics that you are monitoring to kind of measure your progress, and how, just tell us about how you're doing that and what matters to you and your organization.
Yeah, so we manage we monitor those very metrics. Mean time to recovery, dwell time, mean time to detect is a big one, and so one of the value propositions for the tools that I brought in, I brought in a 24/7 hunt capability, and so we hunt our production network every day. Every day, every machine. We've got hunt tools on every single endpoint. And what it does is it monitors what's going on in the machine. And when it detects the presence of a bad actor, it immediately throws a special log up to the SOC. The SOC level 1 takes a look at it and says, wow, we think Mauser has an issue. Immediately goes to their level 2. And when it rolls to level 3, it rolls back to my SOC manager and our incident response team. That average time is about 3 to 8 minutes.
Wow. That's impressive.
So that dwell time is about 3 to 8 minutes. And so when we're detecting that fast, I can recover that fast, and I can get the company back online. Part of our incident response program is we don't do tabletop exercises. We do functional exercises, which means that we'll call a bunch of people into a room. We will give them an attack simulation, and we will say, okay, the Brazil data team, listen, you just had 10 machines get hit by ransomware. I want you to go collect 10 machines out of the closet. I want you to load them up with brand new operating systems, connect them to 10 people in the company, re-download their files, pop their applications back on their machines, and be ready to issue 10 machines. And then I'll reach over to our team in Germany, and I'm like, okay, I want you to do the same thing, except I want you to do it with servers. And we'll give them a handful of servers to go and recover. On the average, we can recover desktops and servers in 90 minutes. And our ERP systems, we're recovering in about 4 hours. And we have a handful of ERP systems. So we're not doing just tabletop exercises. We actually put the feet to the road, and we're like, go restore an ERP system and get us back to the most current version of data that you can get us back to.
Do you then use the newly restored machine or system in production, or do you?
We don't. We don't. What we do is we'll take people out of our production environment, put them into the IR environment, and validate that did the ERP system come up? Is the data current? Run some transactions, test some things out, print some reports, use some scan guns, do whatever the kinds of things that you need to do, and prove that the system works.
Cool.
That's impressive. Has your team gotten better with that over time?
We're getting faster. Yeah. We tried it last year, and we pulled it out in 5.5, 6 hours. This year we did it in 4. So yeah, and part of that is our lessons learned. What didn't go well in the restoration of an ERP system or of a server? And they're like, well, we missed a subnet that we should have included because it had some printers on it that we couldn't get access to. Okay, let's go put that in the SOP for failing over, and we'll make sure that we hit that again. And they're like, yeah. And we also found out that some handhelds didn't work. It's not that the handheld didn't work. It's the wireless access point that the handheld connected through. So we should have added the subnet associated with those access points up in the ceiling. And so we found little things like that. And part of what I go and ask from the lessons learned perspective is like, what could you have done differently that would have made the recovery faster? And they're like, well, if it would have been nice, when we can do, it's nice when we can do this during 8 to 5 business hours. Man, we're a company that sits in every time zone. If you got to go do this at 3 o'clock in the morning, how are you going to feel? Well, you know what? It probably would be good if we had a pot of coffee nearby. And I'm like, okay, that's not unreasonable. Get some Red Bulls, get some 5-hour energies, and we'll try to make sure that all the proper teams are staffed. But let's see, there was one other point that I wanted to bring up from that. That was
about improvements.
Yeah, we were talking about faster, better, more complete, failing over, and this is failing over to, because we have 6 data centers around the world, and so we fail over from our primary to our secondary data centers in each of our big geographic regions. One of the things that's a real saving grace for us is that we air gap our backups. We take a backup. You back up our ERP systems to a primary backup capability, and once we've tested clear all week long, successful backups, no ransomware, good recoveries, we take that and then back that machine up to another air-gapped system, so that we've got a completely air-gapped set of backups for our ERP systems as well.
And then from a day-to-day operations standpoint, on kind of more of the security side of the house, what kind of metrics are you guys measuring to say, hey, is the team doing what we need to be doing to be successful? Are the tools that we've purchased to do some things for us actually running efficiently and doing what we need them to do?
So our metrics include how are we doing in email? How many bad messages have we blocked? How many false positives have we had? And there will be false positives. Let's just be honest with ourselves. How many viruses did we stop? What was the volume of messages coming through in a given month? How are we looking from a patching perspective? How much did we patch on time? Did we and keep in mind, when you've got so many locations like we've got, imagine a bank with 500 branches around the country. The concept or the idea that you're going to patch everything on time it's a nice to have, but it would be unrealistic for you to expect that you're going to hit 100% all the time. I mean, I've got traveling salesmen that they get patched. They were getting patched once a month when they would come in the office, and it's like, well, this is not good enough. So we put a patching capability in our DMZ. So now we're able to patch our traveling salesmen as soon as they can hit a Starbucks. Bam, they're going to start getting patches and getting updated right on the spot. And so part of our metrics are how much of the organization did we get patched on time, understanding that we were always going to have stragglers. And so that really gives us a good healthy understanding of our level of risk. We also pay attention to our internal vulnerability scans, because we are all the time scanning and assessing all of our subnets. We know what our vulnerabilities are, where they are, what are the next things that we need to go and get patched and to reduce our risk posture. We're paying attention to our GRC capability, where we are going and doing risk assessments internally to know, we're supposed to be doing X. Have we been doing X? And do the records show that we've been doing X on time? One of my favorite reports is we run a stale user and stale workstation report that says that if you haven't logged into your account in the last 30 days, we automatically disable your account. And if you haven't logged in 30 days, your machine hasn't been patched in 30 days, we shut down that machine account as well. Because in the last 30 days, you haven't gotten a vulnerability scan, you haven't been patched, you haven't had update to your AV signatures, you haven't had a cyber hunt on your machine in the last 30 days, we immediately terminate your computer account. And it's like, well, that might be a little harsh, but it's easy enough to re-enable. But the positive to all of that is that I'm reducing risk in my users' profiles. It's like, well, wait a second. What if somebody goes out on maternity leave or sabbatical? Well, we kind of know about those people in advance. But if you're not on vacation and you're not on maternity leave and you're not on sabbatical, 30 days of inactivity, we're gonna disable your account, and then we're gonna wait. And if you don't come claim your account at 60 days, well, then we just purge your account. We take the licenses back and issue them to somebody else and move on after 60 days of no use whatsoever. And so those level of metrics also roll up to the board to see how well we're reducing risk in just the user population, the insider risk. We also take metrics from our SOC about dwell time, mean time to recovery, mean time to repair, things of that nature. So it's really healthy. This report that I put together on a monthly basis just to say how well we're doing.
I got a question for you on that. Related to that, how are you prioritizing assets, or are you prioritizing assets in a similar way that you've done with OT, saying, yeah, we don't need to do that over here? Or do you kind of take just a kind of a global macro view of your entire IT environment?
No, we prioritize things that are the greatest risk to the business, which are everybody with a laptop, because that machine can leave the safety of being in an office. When you're sitting in an office, you're behind firewalls and IDS and IPS and all of that good stuff. But when you go out on the road, you've got bad actors that would just love to hit you while you're sitting at a Starbucks sipping on a coffee. And so we fortify our machines when they're out the door, but we've also made sure to prioritize them from a patching perspective. And so we set up a patching capability in our DMZ to make sure that when we have a patch that needs to go out from the manufacturer, that our roving machines can get the update. We also can adjust our security posture because our tools, all of our tools, with the exception of our vulnerability management program, they are all cloud-based. And so I can tweak the antivirus solution even if you're not on the production network. I just need you hitting an access point and hitting the internet somewhere, and it checks in, it gets a security posture update, and it adds a fine-tune or a tweak to your posture on your endpoint. So we focus on that first, everything else in the DMZ. And then once you're inside the confines of the company, we go after the big things: domain controllers, print servers, all of our ERP systems, things that everybody likes to hit. Because nobody really cares about the endpoints unless you're the secretary of the CEO, because there might be some cool stuff there. There might be some cool stuff in legal and the vice president of marketing and the VP of HR. So we fortify our endpoints for everybody that's a laptop user, because that has the propensity to get outside the confines of our real security posture, which is in our offices and in our plants.
Right. Very cool. Awesome. Well, this has been great, Dr. Harris. Appreciate you being on. One last fun little question, then we'll give you a chance to kind of sign off here. But I saw that you recently posted about your son-in-law, correct me if I'm wrong, looking for a job in cybersecurity, and kind of led to the qualms of someone looking for entry-level roles in cyber. So how do you see that from your seat, both as a CISO and then as a father-in-law in today's world?
Yeah, so and that's a great question, because a lot of college kids are asking this very question. How do I go out and get my first role in cyber? And I spoke to a group of master's students recently at a university here in the Atlanta, Georgia area, and they were like, "Well, we all want jobs," and I'm like, "Okay, so let's talk about what you've been doing for the last few years." And I said, "Some of you are going to be great in programming, some of you are going to be fantastic in hardware, but at the end of the day, you all have the same college degree. You've all got that same piece of paper with the same stamp on it. My question to you is, what have you done to differentiate yourself? Are you doing any internships? Go get an internship. If you don't have one, get 3 internships. Do one every single summer until you graduate. And if you can't manage to get an internship, find your local information security governing body in the town where you're at. They're in major towns across the country. Go align yourself with ISACA, ISC squared, and start going to some meetings. And if you can't find anything local, get yourself into groups in LinkedIn and start posting, start building your own personal brand, start following people, get some people to follow you. And because that becomes part of your personal resume. When I go out and I'm looking at these kids and they've all got the same degree from the same university, and they're like, well, I how do I differentiate myself? I'm going to go look at, what have you been doing while you were getting your degree? I've got this one young man. He was like, well, I tinker. And I'm like, okay, that's a little cryptic, but tell me more. He's like, okay, so in my basement, I've got a full network stack set up, and I've got a mini SAN and an AS, and I'm doing virtualization, and I'm pinging this box through this box, and I'm making it talk to those things, and I'm trying to figure out if I can make my blender talk to my microwave. And I'm like, now you're the one that I want to have, and you defined a tinkerer for me. And so, and then he'll say, yeah. And when I learn all of this stuff, I go teach cyber safe online at the local elementary school. Now, see, that tells me that you've got passion and heart, and those are 2 things that I can't teach anybody. I can teach anybody network security and computer security, and I can teach anyone how to be, a cyber generalist. But man, I can't teach passion and heart. And if you're not bringing that with you, you're just like everybody else who just got a degree. So that's my go get.
Great advice.
Cool. Well, with that, Dr. Harris, this is kind of your opportunity at the end of the call. We like to allow all of our guests kind of the chance to just share a little bit about their world, what you're doing, what you're passionate about, maybe outside of Mauser, and if there's anything that you want to call out, events,
Sure.
books, that sort of stuff, feel free.
So I love watching the light bulb turn on. I like watching somebody who's learning something for the first time, and I love to watch their eyes light up when they get it. And with that, I speak at a lot of conferences. I love to go to conferences because I love to give my time back. I have been blessed. I am fortunate. I've got a lot of knowledge. I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I've learned a lot of things over time. And one of the things that I love more than anything else is to find a young person who says, you know what, will you just mentor me? Will you share, your how you got to where you're at? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you like chasing the bad guy every day? Tell me what it is about your world that just, makes you happy. And I love sharing, what I've learned, my background, and speaking at these conferences to watch the light bulbs go off in people. And I'm preparing a couple of talks right now. I've got a couple of speaking engagements coming up. Some of them international, some of them here in the U.S. And that's my thing. I love giving back, even if it's an area where I'm not particularly strong in. That doesn't make any difference. I'd still have a lot of experience over time, just even if it's a cursory knowledge. And what I encourage young people to do, I said, you know what, get out and try some things. I'll tell you one interesting story. There was my wife and I used to we would judge the high school senior graduation projects. We were on that committee for the town that we lived in, and this one young lady, she came up and she started her presentation, and she wanted to be a veterinarian. And at the end of it, she decided she didn't want to be a veterinarian. And I asked her, I said, "Tell me your story." And she says, "Well, part of my my senior project is I wanted to be a veterinarian, so I shadowed a vet all summer long, and And I said, well, what did that mean to you? She says, well, when I went into the veterinarian's office, I thought being a vet meant that I was going to play with puppies and kitties all day. And so I was in the kitty room, and one of the cats there made this really weird meow sound. So I went to get the doctor, and he came in, and the cat was in the middle of dying. And so she had to help the animal through the process that it was going through. And she says, what I learned out of that is that I don't want to be a veterinarian. I said, you learned a valuable lesson before you sunk your time and money into an education that you were not going to be happy with. Go get an internship. Go practice being a DBA. You're probably not going to like it. I didn't like it. Go practice being a programmer. I loved being a programmer because it's kind of like being an artist. I created something from nothing. But what I really like to do, I like chasing bad guys around the planet. Man, that's what I call fun. Because the cool thing about information security, I never know what I'm going to do from one day to the next. And I love the diversity of my day. Because, maybe one day I'm writing policy. Maybe another day I'm writing a report. Maybe the day after that, I'm trying to figure out why this person in a country that historically attacks other countries is attacking Mauser. And I want to know what. And I want to know who. I want to know where. And when I can get his MAC address, then things start getting interesting.
Awesome. Cool. Well, again, thanks so much for being on today. It's great to meet you and hang out with you.
Absolutely.
And we'll look forward to it.
Thanks, guys.